Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast, here from the Not Sam studio. And I have to tell you, this must be huge for my guest. I'm, of course, the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts. But in a single year, to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame and to get to sit down in the Not Sam studio, it's got to be a huge thrill. Jeff Jarrett is here. Jeff.
And the third thrill is I'm sitting with you, Sam, in Midtown Manhattan. Your view is incredible.
That's right. Just beyond the camera, you can see across the river.
And Mean Gene.
Mean Gene's right there. Yeah. Everybody's there.
And who else is there? Oh wow.
Yeah.
There's Dink and Doink and
right.
A whole.
Right. All
There's
the
Yoko. Look at Yoko.
In his robe and everything.
Yeah.
The Midtown Manhattan
All
regulars.
aside, it's great to be here. We joked quite a bit about it in Mania weekend, and you finally coughed up the right cash. And
I did.
Here I did.
Well, the price tag's heavy. We had to do a few, almost 200 episodes before we could gather up enough money to get you here. But it's worth every penny.
And a few garage sales in New Rochelle, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, Jeff, the first question on everybody's mind is, what's the haps?
Oh man, it's a bit surreal these days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you really want me to start, but the Hall of Fame obviously kicked this year off in an amazing way. Just as we got rolling, I was talking to your much better half as you were.
You talking about the dog?
Yes.
Yeah.
As you were sitting there, and no, it just as the year rolled out. It's been amazing. It really has. We've joked a lot, but now I think I'm going to have to get serious here.
Yeah.
For a little bit here and there.
We'll go up and down
during these next 3 hours. Kidding. Just kidding.
Scaring
not 3
people.
hours. Yeah. No, it's been really cool. The Hall of Fame thing has generated. I knew it'd be big. I just had no idea how much. I don't want to say buzz because that sounds like I'm mainstream news or something like that. But personally, for me, in my world, it's just generated an enormous amount of opportunities and just a lot going on. And I'm sure we'll get to a few of these things as we roll along. I just got back from Mexico. That was it was as much a shock to me as anybody. So a lot going on. Going over to the UK next month. The end of the year as it's rolling out, StarCast is coming up.
Yeah,
did a partnership with Fight, the streaming network.
I read about that.
It's just one thing after another, and I'm if you had to put one word on this year, I've been very humbled.
Humbled.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
In an amazing way.
Yeah.
I never would have dreamed 2018 would have. Started off and continue to go like it has.
A lot of times people take the negative things and say like, oh, that humbled me. But for you, it's all the kind of this new wave of success. It's almost like this new part of your career where a lot of people are like, well, that's it. This whole new wave is just beginning, and you can kind of feel it. And you're like,
what is going on?
And I think that part of it, and we talked about this a little bit before we came down, is that it's not just being in the Hall of Fame changes everything. You, I think, are a special case because it also, you going into the Hall of Fame marked all of us marks figuring out
you're not a mark.
That you're back in the family. Like that was, because you were the last name. Really, I can't think. I sat there at the Hall of Fame and I'm going like, okay, San Martino, Warrior, Macho. You had these names that were quote unquote blacklisted. You don't, and they'd all come back. And it was like, well, Jeff Jarrett's the one that whatever it is, whatever this thing is, whatever the resentment is,
interesting.
It's just not going to happen. And then when it just happens, it's like, okay. And it kind of reminds everybody, like, we can all celebrate Jeff Jarrett again. Like, he's not this pariah.
He's not the four-letter word.
Right,
no.
right.
JEFF is no. I mean, and I never really looked at it that way, but also never even, I never gave the Hall of Fame, as far as me being inducted, I never even gave it a second thought. It just wasn't going to happen. Totally accepted, understand it. and went on about my life essentially ever since I have since 2002.
Yeah, that's kind of the going through your history and everything. That's the impression that I always kind of got, that you just figured, okay, well, if this isn't happening right now, I'm not just going to sit around, do the convention circuit, and wait until it happens. I got to figure out what the next move is, and just whether it's going to go in this direction or I have to create a direction, you're going to move. But let's talk about getting back to WWE. There was that video that they put out on YouTube. You went to the SmackDown taping before the Hall of Fame. What was it like to be back there? How had it changed? How was the vibe different? And was there a familiarity to it, or had it changed so much that you were like, this is a different deal now?
It was unbelievable in both. The answer to the question is exactly the same and then totally different. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds like, oh, you're giving two answers. It really was. On the one hand, and there was the video that captured it, .com came to my house at 6:30 in the morning, 6:15, really early that Tuesday morning, and we started videoing, and we were just doing things about and it'll be on the network at some point. Me taking my kids to school, the cameras rolled with us, little odd jobs around town. We did a bunch of stuff. And I knew what the day was planning, and then just out of nowhere, they asked me. I don't know what the question was, but man, just a wave of emotion came over me. And the sort of the byline of that whole was, this didn't have to happen. They didn't have to do this. And that emotion really came over me strong. And then pulling up, and it's funny, pulling up to Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, I've been to that building an awful lot over the last 15 years, but not for wrestling. Mm-hmm. Hockey games, concerts, events. I know that building is good as or better than any building in the world just because I've been around it. And seen it grown, and they've done additions and they've added all that kind of stuff. But to be pulling up for a SmackDown live taping, all those emotions came back, and then you just see production guys and directors and guys that I've worked with. It was like I almost stepped back in time for a minute when I saw some of the faces that you go, oh my God. And then, the gorilla position and just sort of walk, just those kind of things. And then the production room. And they showed that. They captured that. And that is one thing I don't have to tell you. The WWE rarely misses a beat. But the cameras were everywhere. Yeah. And they captured me seeing AJ Styles and Bobby Roode. And literally that was the first time that me and Zack Ryder had ever had any kind of interaction, and I messed with
Except on Twitter. Yeah. I saw him tweeting you all weekend building up to this thing.
But it was funny. But those kind of emotions that just came out, and then, just being in catering, and then, there was people at the Bridgestone Arena who I personally know, and they're there, and they're looking at me like, what the heck are you doing here?
Right.
And then we went out and shot that piece. So it was really, really cool. I'm the one thing, and since time has rolled by, that I'm really thankful for is from the time that Tuesday started all the way till the following Monday, it's all documented. ESPN was with me. They've got pictures of me and Sean, and just, I call it intimate moments, me and Goldberg and backstage at Mania, all that kind of stuff. So, but that Tuesday, very emotional, and man, it was special. It really was.
And it really is amazing. It's got to be for you, because when I think about it, like as a fan, it's amazing. You just talked about getting to see AJ Styles and Bobby Roode and getting to see Goldberg. And like that weekend, I feel like really accentuates the fact that WWE has evolved way past a company and into this is the representation of almost wrestling history in the United States. You know what I mean? They've gotten all the libraries. They're curating. They've gotten the superstars. Like they're getting everything under one roof.
And it's so different than, you can almost say that about the NFL, because the NFL is American football.
Sure.
And now, I say that with XFL and another organization on the way.
NFL for now, as we speak.
Yeah, as we speak. That's
right.
But I've obviously been on the outside looking in since 2002, and, dealing, whether it's with Marvel Toys in the beginning and then Jakks Pacific or broadcasters around the world, it's WWE, and you could almost to a T look at different barometers from a financial point of view, from a viewership point of view. Got so many different markers. They are 7 to 9 times anything else. They are, I think, above 90% market share. They are professional wrestling. And then as you I got the opportunity, as we've just talked about, to look at it from a perspective of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It is the professional wrestling industry for all intents and matters. It's the history.
Yeah.
They are wrestling.
Right.
You watch an NFL game or an NBA, you watch anything, any kind of TV, they don't refer to it as tissue paper. They refer to it as Kleenex.
Mm-hmm.
It is Coke. It is wrestling.
Right.
Period.
Right. What kind of Coke do you want? I'll have a Pepsi.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, you've done this before.
Well, let's. How does that compare to you walking in? Because when you started full time with WWE, it was 93. You'd gone 93, 94, and you'd been wrestling for about 8 years.
7 years.
7 years.
That's
Yeah.
7 years full time.
So when you walk into that environment, then all those years ago for the first time, what was that experience like? How does that compare to it? Like as a young man looking around, because clearly, even then it was a different world than what you had encountered.
Unbelievable. I mean, I had wrestled in the 7-state area around Tennessee. I'd gone to Japan, Puerto Rico, Texas. Those are the areas that I'd really wrestled in. So to come to the big city, to come to the Big Apple, come to Poughkeepsie, New York, and Lowell, Massachusetts, and all the places that, it was Raw Superstars Challenge. It was our 3 days of taping. I was mesmerized as a kid, and then for the first 5-6 years of my career, the Mid-South Coliseum, the Louisville Gardens, those buildings, but on a weekly basis, there was very little production. There's a ring light. Our marketing consisted of, some personal appearances and a newspaper ad. Just the marketing side is just minuscule. So you in our TV was done in a Channel 5, 1960 Union Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. But it's literally where they did the 5 and 10 o'clock news in those days.
Clear out the desk and put in a ring and some bleachers.
That's exactly. Well, not even bleachers.
Right.
About 75 chairs.
That's it.
So that was quote unquote TV. And then you get there and you're doing Raw, and we're doing what? We're doing 4 episodes in one night, and that's how far back I go. We did 4 one-hour episodes of Raw when I got there, and so that kind of stuff. And I can just remember just looking around the venues and just wanting to get dialed in and taking mental notes. I loved it. I've always been really immersed, but it was a completely new world.
But you had a promoter's mentality even as a young man. Like you're looking around and taking in the details of like, okay, how does this work? How do they pull that off? How does what they have a special department for this? How do they light this thing? All that stuff.
And what was crazy is 93, the business was just starting back up. 91 down, 92 down for live events and all that. And I can remember, wherever we shot TV, it would look completely sold out and people going crazy and fast paced and in and out of breaks. And I can just remember going, well, wasn't quite like that when we taped it. No, Dad, no. He was up there, but no, I can remember. It just their production values took a average show, and I say average with the intensity and the excitement, and those people are sitting there for 4 and 5 hours. So the buzz, but man, once you see what airs on TV and it's VO'd and so clean, and so the matches are damn near perfect, and the production cuts and all that. I was like, this is how you do it.
Yeah. Now, what did you think when you get there what was your first response to the Double J character? Because you're keeping your name, but obviously Double J was not what you had been doing before that.
No. I mean, the thing that I kind of think I knew I was going to be a heel. Mm-hmm. That excited me because I'd been 7 years of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, baby face.
And your dad thought that's what you were naturally, right?
Yeah. For more or less.
Yeah.
The promoter's kid, and everybody knew that. And that's such a hard stigma to overcome. And I knew it.
Sure.
I knew I was always sort of fighting that uphill battle. And my grandmother at the time was a promoter, and she was there every Saturday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And my dad was there, half the time in Memphis on Mondays. So for me to be a heel, it just wasn't going to work in that mentality of that era of the industry. And so I knew I was going to get the opportunity to be a heel. Love that. And then with the Double J character, it's that may be, and maybe it's me But it was the first time that I'm going to play an extension of my personality that I've never got the opportunity to. I love country music. Did I come up? No, that's Vince. Vince came up with it. I'm going to take over country music by taking over the WWF, the Double JF. So it was cool.
I mean, it's just such an. I think about it to this day. Even as a kid, I'm sitting there going, "Who admits that what they're doing is a stepping stone?" It's just the most obnoxious. Like, we love this thing. Why would we want you to use it as a stepping stone?
It was brilliant.
Yeah, just that phrasing of it. The stepping stone.
Yes,
it's like,
and I can remember, and Bruce Pritchard, remember, and we've talked about this. Remember, you're going to use the WWF. That is so emotionally invoking. Okay, you're going to use us,
right?
What?
Right.
And you're telling us it translated well.
Right. Yeah, it really did. Were the vignettes as fun to shoot as Bruce Pritchard has described them?
Short answer, absolutely. And the thing that was sort of my head was spinning was, brand new character, outfits. Always still to this day, I'm always big about presentation. If you don't look the part, there's no way your audience is going to believe you. It doesn't work.
Right.
I mean, period. I don't care if you're playing a bum. You better look like a bum,
right?
A real bum, not a drugstore bum. But anyway, but no, that. And so I remember the costume changes and making sure, and it was. But we did all that in 2 days. That is something that I look back now. We as a producer, I would never ask a guy, hey, go shoot me, I think 10, 12, I don't know, 10 vignettes, and we did recaps. Hats off to Bruce and Kerwin.
Right.
Those guys came to town.
Kerwin's one of those faces, by the way, who's still there with WWE.
He still remembers it, and he had fun. We all had fun with it, and I didn't realize how much fun I was having because I was so dialed into it. And Bruce would give me quite a bit of verbiage, and I would have to make it a little bit my own and add a little and cut a little, but try to do exactly what he asked. Man, I can say this: by the end of those 2 days, A, I was sick of spelling my name, but B, I said, "This is good."
You knew it.
I knew that there's no doubt in my mind. Now, I had no idea that I was never going to appear. That to me was part of the brilliance of it. I never stepped foot in a ring to wrestle until 13 weeks in. They did 10 or 11, 12 weeks of the vignettes, a compilation vignette, and then I appeared.
Right.
That was I still to this day think that was one of the best moves for my character to launch, to go into that. I knew they were good. I hated myself when I would watch it back on the little monitor. That's Bruce. Bruce really invoked a character. We're sitting here talking about it. Use and stepping stone.
Yeah.
Those kind of words, and you just go, what an asshole.
It's true. And there was this moment, too, when I realized how effective those vignettes were. It really wasn't until the Hall of Fame, because I was there at your rehearsal, and that's when you walked out and you were practicing your intro, when you went, "Howdy, folks." And I was like, there's a visceral thing where I was like, oh, I can't believe how much, I remember how much this means to me. But it was also, I think, one of the last characters to be introduced like that. Everybody talks about Ted DiBiase and Mr. Perfect and those classic, even, Dusty Rhodes when he first came in, those classic vignettes. WWE vignettes. Like, Double J was one of the last characters to be introduced through those vignettes over the course of that many weeks.
And I call it equity. You really put a lot of deposits into a character when they don't see you wrestle. Everybody wrestles in a 1 hour or 2 hour, now 3 hour show. And I can remember the first house show loop that I went on, good booing, a good reaction coming down the aisle, but when they'd give me the mic and they were lower, and I'd just say that, "Howdy, folks, Double J here." Boo! I mean, they really can't, just that.
And what's great too, I just thought of this, is the music would play in the vignette, which means when that music gets played for the house, immediately we all know who this is.
That's what I'm saying, presentation.
Yeah, and we're booing.
You
got your Porter Wagner outfits on.
In my TNA days, that presentation is something you just think, how do you present? How do you do it? And that they did it right. Oh, God, back in those days, man. I know it's a different era, and it's a different mindset, and the millennials and all that. But there's something to presenting a performer. I'll say this, NFL... the NFL, the Fox guys, and I know they're going on SmackDown, but when you watch their hour pregame show, Favre again, or back in the day, whatever the storyline is of the football game, they did it right.
Right.
And you bite in, and that's something that I think professional wrestling fans, they want to see that pregame hype.
Whose idea was the strap top? Because I feel like I hadn't seen before. I haven't seen it since. That's
probably a reason for that. No, that was me.
Yeah.
I wanted something different.
Did you just think of it? Did you draw a picture and give it to a seamstress?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jill, my wife at the time, who passed away in 2007, I said, look, there's got to be some things. But, Jerry Lawler had the one strap.
Right.
So I couldn't go with, and I'd never liked the singlet because I'm not an amateur wrestler. I was never an amateur wrestler. So I said, all right, I'm going to. And then one thing led to another, and I actually did. I sort of sketched it out. First, I came up with 3. But if you put 3 on the front, then it's really going to look stupid. 2 on the back, that's sort of. Or one, I'm trying to think. I did a couple of different things, and I came up with 3 and 2, or however it was. It worked.
Yeah, and spaced out properly, so it's not just like in the middle and you got weird spaces, dead space.
Trial and error with my seamstress.
Yeah,
but yes, bless her heart, man. She was great. She lived down in East Nashville, and once we sort of got it going, I can remember. She said, "I'll have them ready for you on the next trip," and she had them ready.
What were your expectations going into WWE at the time? Did you think, okay, they got all this hype around me, I'm going right to the main event? Was it, okay, it might take some time, but...
The one thing, Lawler had gone up there, and Lawler, was my dad's business partner, but as far as in the ring, he so good. I mean, God, he was so good. It's so good. But, I mean, just, in those days, and he wasn't, in his earlier days, I heard earlier stories how, him and Dundee's in their prime in the early 80s. I was a little bit past that. But no, Shawn had come to town. Owen had come to town. Shawn and them made their path through. But, I'd known Shawn. I'd seen him. He had a great run, 91, 92, 93 when he was breaking out.
Yeah.
And I knew that I'd had my matches with him. So I'm like, all right. And then, Kurt Hennig had come down from Minneapolis, and then he went up there. So I had worked with guys who were main eventing or semi-main eventing in the WWF. I was ready to get there. I worked 6 or 7 nights a week, was working out like crazy, studied the game back then. I wanted to have the best match on the card every night. And just tried to I don't say I wanted better opponents. That's probably not the accurate deal, but I wanted to get on a bigger stage. That's for sure.
Now, was there any disappointment in that first year? Because really, it wasn't until your second year that you really started to have some stuff. Because the first year of pay-per-views, you had your Royal Rumble match. You had WrestleMania you weren't even on the show. You got the tag match was wiped off
because of the ladder match,
right?
So that's that. But
you had Mabel at SummerSlam, which I don't.
No, and Doink. That was Kevin Nash used to joke with me. He said, "Oh, at least I don't have to wipe makeup off."
Right? Because you ran with Doink for
a while,
right? Right.
But no, Jack Lanza, an agent at the time, and he didn't even say this to. It was almost a matter of fact. Chief Jay Strongbow was an agent. Those guys, in those times, the way they looked at it is you're going to have a year before you get put in a slot. It was a year to get over.
Yeah.
It was we're going to do this right. Because if you look at each of those programs that I had, it was a building block.
Yes,
it was another building
definitely.
block. It was a building block. And me being around the industry, was jumping up and down. Yeah, I get to do this for another 6-8 weeks. Yeah, I get to do this. No, but I did know. I understood. They're building the character, and just the reaction. I could hear when I went out every night.
Right.
And it built and it built and it built, and I'm like, yeah, there is. I keep going at equity, but that's I knew when they pulled the trigger on whatever angle. For us to get ratings or draw money or that, it was going to be ready because they were building it, and it's a slow build, and that's the right way to do it.
And it was dead on because it was just about a year in that you started working with Razor and Shawn and those guys. How did you get along with Razor and Shawn and the kliq guys in that era? That's kind of the notorious era for those guys. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that was. Hunter had not got there yet, so it was me and Shawn. It was Kevin, Scott, me, and Shawn in the car, and sometimes Shawn would be off and Lex Luger would be in the car.
Wow.
So there's some funny stories, the four of us traveling together. But no, me, Kevin, and Scott did a lot of traveling, and then X-Pac was in the car quite a bit. So there was a group of, we needed to split up. But no, that's who I ran with, who I traveled with. And so, I can remember Scott Hall laughing like, look at you with all that. Because every night after you wrestle Doink, you got face paint over you.
Of course you do.
So, on a house show run, I'm wearing the same thing. All right, guys, we're going back to the hotel, blah, blah, blah. I'll meet you downstairs, and we're going to go to eat in Denny's or whatever. What I have to do first? Get the makeup out of my jacket. Scott says, let him go wash. No. So,
And what do you have to do that in a sink?
Yes, hotel sink.
Yeah, you just have
the
to
big
hand
time,
wash.
big boy.
That's it. Yeah, we finally got here. I got to wash clown makeup off my jacket.
Exactly. Seriously, exactly.
And I would imagine too. I mean, all the stories about Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and X-Pac and all those guys. They say that the reason that they rode together was because they love the business so much. They ate, slept, breathed the business. And it sounds like, just based on what you're telling me about first getting there and observing everything, same mindset on you.
And what was good is that, again, just using it as a learning experience in that, listen to the guys talk. It's a different style. Remember, I came from a territory that we talked about. We literally had a weekly show, and we were in weekly towns. So you had to have the match, basically a different match every week. Well, now you come up, and I had my Doink match, and you had an A match, a B match, and sometimes a C match. But you really critique things and learn trial and error. So by the time you got to the pay-per-view, you put it all together, a match of, and that's why I learned different things like that. Learned about the presentation of how well WWE, just in the car, and trading stories.
And how do you pick an A, B, or C match? Is it just like, well, we did an A match last night, let's do the B match tonight, and just work them out?
The amount of people.
Interesting.
No, but no, but really placement on a card.
Sure.
Length of the card. If you're in the main event, you better deliver a main event match. If you're in a semi, deliver a semi. And
the amount of people. I mean, Madison Square Garden's going to get a different match than this little town over here.
They're always going to be quality, but really it's the length of not just the length. So sort of you can layer it up, and you can. That to me is a pro. There's a time when you leave everything out there, and there's another time that you just got to be smart with your body. Mm-hmm. You absolutely, in those days, we were doing 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off.
Right.
And so that's a grind.
How did you get along with Vince McMahon at this point?
Good.
Yeah.
And that's if you want to get to it. But I've never, not really, I don't want to say personally got along with him. Definitely had creative differences.
Right.
But it was great. And, the thing that I would listen to is that's been it back when he was play-by-play. Him and Lawler were play-by-play on Raw.
Yeah.
And you could really,
yes.
I mean, and
you could figure out what he liked. Listening to, because you know him.
Well, you know him, and obviously it's the '90s, so the announcing styles are different.
Sure.
But when you hear Lawler and Vince, and then later JR and Lawler, and how they're, and as JR, I love his saying, we make the music, they write the lyrics. Mm-hmm. But you got to give them the right music, you got to give them the beat, and you got to give them time to tell the story, and those kind of things. When I would listen. And on a TV match and say, okay, when I did this and as I strut, that really gives them time to talk just about me.
Right.
There's certain things that you learn as a performer to go, I'm going to force them, not really force them, but you leave them very few options. The only thing they can talk about is you.
Right. Throw the guy out of the ring and do my strut. It's just me. What else are you going to talk about?
But you got to throw him out of the ring where it makes sense. But no,
of course.
You tie it all together, yeah. And that's a part of the art of the industry that I think nowadays so much is churned out. It's more difficult nowadays.
In that era, did it become a frustrating thing when you do matches with Doink for 3 months and then go to the pay-per-view and fight Mabel? Or, something like that, in the sense that, like, I perfected this match over here, and now all of a sudden,
not to me. I always enjoyed it, and that's something that, coming from the territory, I had to learn, and I was, to this day, I believe I can have a match with any style of wrestler. That just came with the nature of the beast in our territory.
Yeah. How did you feel about the roadie being brought in?
And me and Brian got to reconnect over it. We were still arguing. I still going to say it was Lowell Mass where he had. But anyway, I thought it was so cool because the Double J character was so defined.
Yeah.
But we were at a point where I hadn't sang.
Right.
We hadn't taken the musical side down very far, and it was just ready for so many things. And because I'd go out every night, the world's greatest singer, world's greatest entertainer, world's greatest wrestler. And, he had the little mag
That's back when
light.
you were saying wrestler.
Wrestler.
Now you'd say world's greatest singer, world's greatest entertainer, world's greatest sports entertainer.
There you go.
Right.
But no, it really, man, it just took the character to a whole nother level.
That wasn't your idea to bring in a roadie?
Nope.
They brought that to you and said, this is what we're going to package you with.
This is what we're doing.
And you kind of immediately were like, okay, this is going to work? Or was it when you saw Brian do it, you were like, yeah, that's going to work?
Just the fact of having, because if you'll see in the original vignettes, that I had a driver, I had a secretary, I had a step and fetch it, I had all these people around me, an entourage.
Right.
That that's what all entertainers have. Even
Right.
It's much more pronounced nowadays. But I always saw the Double J entertainer side. You have all these people around it. Also know that if you surround your people at ringside, even if it's just one, you add another layer. And Brian, with his background, I knew that I said, okay, this can really personally help me, and then hit it off right with Brian, and knew, I said, all right, this is magic. And you know what? I really think from the very first night out, everybody said, this is clicking.
Yeah, I always knew when something really worked when my dad was into it, because my dad always thought wrestling was so stupid, and I just loved it, and he thought it was all so dumb. But there's a handful of things. He loved seeing the second doink come out at WrestleMania 9, brilliant, and I'm like, okay, that's working. And he loved you had the roadie, and he was a roadie. The little nuances of that character, crouching at ringside instead of standing, that little thing, it's like, that's perfect. Go, chuck.
He did it. I mean, he actually went out and watched some roadies just to get it. And Brian's very, very creative, and he got it. I thought the mag light, because they darkened, and when he came through the curtain, he'd shine it like that. it was. I mean, to me, it's so irritating.
Yeah,
it worked.
Yeah. Now, do those little things, were those? That was Brian coming up with a lot of them?
Brian was, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, he said, I'm going to wear this hat backwards, and he got an elbow pad, and he...
Yeah, single out. Yeah,
and he got the handkerchiefs hanging out, because he just went out and saw he just looked at 30 roadies around and said, I'm going to take some of this, some of this, some of this, some of this. And then he went and talked to some of the guys. I think somebody on the staff talked about his mag light, a guy backstage who came, they pull it out, and he said, I need it. I mean, he really took that character and dove in.
That's great. So, of course, that leads us into the thing that, and Bruce Pritchard has a lot to do with modernizing the fame of this, the song.
Yes.
With My Baby Tonight. Obviously you would have heard that song before the rest of us.
Don't you have an entourage that gets me more coffee?
You would think so, right? I need to get the intern who
they're out there chasing headlights or something out
That's
there.
Right.
Street lights.
That's right. So you heard the song before we heard it? With My Baby Tonight?
What do you mean before? Yeah, of course.
Of course, right?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think the first time?
Immediately, I did say, that is a long country song.
Right.
When
they played it at the Hall of Fame this year, I was like, I forgot how long this song was.
Non-traditional, choruses broke up.
Yeah.
The hook's great, but it is definitely not. Immediately, I went, all righty.
Mm-hmm.
But just Brian's vocal ability. Now, when we would ride up and down the car, I had no idea. It was a month in or what, maybe a couple of car rides in. I'm like, dadgum, this guy can sing. He to this day, he can sing really good. He's got a tone in his voice that is just unique, and he can sing anything he wants. But I knew, I said, okay, this is going to be good.
So the idea of the roadie singing, the roadie character was not brought in to eventually sing. It was just, we have this roadie character. As it turns out, this guy can sing.
They knew he could sing. But yeah, I don't know how far that may be a Vince McMahon question.
Yeah.
Immediately when he heard they could sing and how they put everything together. But it wasn't much long after, because he sang for him in his audition in Lowell, Mass. Hear that, Road Dogg? It wasn't Poughkeepsie, it was Lowell, Mass. But no, he sang Man Mountain Rock, had the guitar, the acoustic, and Brian did sing.
Man Mountain Rock.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pull one out.
Yeah. Max Payne.
That's it.
Yeah, of course. I remember that in your house too when you performed that live, because I'm sitting there watching with my folks again. That was probably 95, so it's probably
July of 95.
Right. So I was probably 11. Probably about 11, 12 years old. And I'm watching with my mom, who's a big country music fan. And I go, no, Jeff Jarrett's going to sing. The music video is good. He can really sing. And you're performing the song. And she's like, oh, this actually is a good song. and she's watching it, and she looks at me and she goes, "Sammy, he's lip syncing," and I went, "No, I don't think so." And my mom smartened me up to what was happening
The angle.
way before anyone.
Oh, where's she at?
Yeah, I know.
It's like you don't tell kids.
You're not supposed to.
No, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and
Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just double J. So after that is when the controversy starts to build, because that's when you and the Road Dogg leave.
Yes.
Kind of like was it at that show?
That was what there's what a crazy night. But yeah, I did the performance
Right.
and the match.
So that should have been it's the Shawn Michaels match. It's a great match. And you're like, okay, that's a lot of shine for Jeff Jarrett.
Out of a 2 hour and 40-minute show.
Right.
Me and Brian were like 45, almost an hour.
It should have just been called In Your House Double J. Yeah. Like it was your show.
Yes, in Nashville.
Yes. And you guys walk off.
Yeah.
Why?
And that's something that when you hear Bruce's podcast, he leaves out, and I'm still going to leave it unsaid. There's one little detail that everybody glosses over. There was creative differences, without question. There was creative differences, but there was also some other stuff going on that I'll leave.
Personal?
Not with me.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but it did, part of it was...
Creative differences.
Right. And that meant losing the title. That meant...
Not losing the title.
Okay.
Because if you'll recall,
yeah.
I did it up to there.
Right.
I thought the video had just come out, and I had voiced my opinion pretty loud, and I just said, man, we are pulling the rug on this very, very quick. Let this salivate more. I didn't think me and Brian should go right into the storyline immediately.
Gotcha.
I definitely thought there was a lot more legs on the situation, because it was, and hey, at the end of the day, it's his ball of wax. He's the owner, and he can do exactly what he wants. I just didn't have to join into that game, and chose to switch the title, and I'm going to go home.
Right, and you didn't even do the angle that was supposed to happen, right? That was supposed to be
and from I'll say, even in those days with my promoter hat on, why give them the angle to cause further confusion? The end of the story is Double J losing the belt to Shawn, and let's move on down.
Right.
And that's where a lot of history sometimes gets overlooked or rewritten. Brian didn't have to leave that night if he didn't want to.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask you about, because it would seem to me, and you would know far better than me, but the only reason to do this so quickly is to transition Brian into a babyface as quickly as possible, get you out of the way, and have Brian singing his country songs and try to make some money off of this thing, which I understand why for you, you're like, whoa, like, this is my whole WWE run was building to this point, right?
Yes.
And so to just blow it up so you can, I get why you would not like that, but
I just thought it's too soon.
Right.
I just thought it was way
Sure.
too soon.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why did Brian leave?
You ask him.
Okay, I will at some point, because it's just, even as a kid, I'm going like, I don't know what happened, because even when he did that thing where he turned around, he tripped the wrong guy, like you could see there's tension, like I want to see a Rhodey versus Jeff Jarrett match.
Yes.
And I'm like, where'd they go?
The match that never took place.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Now, but to just walk off and leave, it's a pretty unheard of thing to do there, correct? Especially mid-angle, mid-build. We were just talking about how much was put into this character.
Correct.
To just be like, okay, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm leaving. Like, that's a big no. People don't do that.
Correct.
What gave you the balls to do that?
And I don't ever look at it as the balls at all. It was, I appreciate the fact that that you guys have a creative direction you want to go, and I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm not willing to go down that road. So, the lack of a better word is, I'm not walking out with the belt. I'm not holding up anything. I am going to go my separate way, and certainly, didn't hold a gun to Brian's head, and he left willingly as well.
But you told him I'm going to leave, and he's like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he knew completely. Yeah.
Were you surprised? Did you figure your WWE career was over at that point?
Not really. I mean, I'll say over. No,
it didn't seem so egregious to you.
What do you mean?
Meaning that, like, this isn't the nail in the coffin here. This is, it's tense right now. We'll get past this.
Yes.
Yeah. And you did.
Remember, I've seen my dad hire and rehire Jimmy Valiant, Austin Idol, Dutch Mantell, Bill Dundee, on and on and on.
Well, that's probably part of it, too. You had that knowledge that a lot of guys your age at that point probably wouldn't have had.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
you've seen all these promoter talent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got the options of doing the angle, not showing up at all, everything in between. And I'm, right or wrong, but I thought the win-win, so to speak, is here's your title.
Right.
I'm going to go out and tear the house down. And
did you specifically go like, okay, if I'm going to walk out tonight, I'm going to make sure I have the best match that I've had in WWE?
It's hard to have a bad match with Shawn Michaels.
I guess that's true too.
And again, we'd worked together since '88, so we knew he's. I don't think he has a peer, his longevity. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I did know, it's against Shawn. It's in Nashville. I knew what I was doing after the match. I made sure that, and I was hyped up. I mean, it goes without saying, the performance side of things, that was a blast. I love doing that. And it was in the back of my mind. I don't say the back of my mind. One of the things I thought about that day is the people in Nashville, they're gonna dig this.
Yeah,
they're gonna like this live performance.
Is there any part of you that after the match goes like, you hear the bell, ding, 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 you go, oh my God, now I've actually got to do this thing that I was planning on doing? Or was there no hesitation in terms of
no hesitation?
You knew what you were doing.
That's sort of in my mind, I would already.
So you're back like 6 months later, more or less, right?
Yep. So,
5-6 months,
and it wasn't the same.
Meaning?
It just, I could tell when I got back, Ahmed Johnson, it was just a different temperament.
Right, there was tension.
Yeah, just a little bit different temperament.
And Bruce Pritchard just talked about the fact that even though Vince was ready to welcome you back, Bruce was not.
No, that's
right.
what I'm saying is that there was definitely still some hurt feelings with other personalities on the other side.
And I'm sure there's even some talent in the locker room that was like, who does this guy think he is type of thing?
I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so at that point, do you go like, okay, this might not work at this moment?
Yeah,
in your head,
question.
that's when you start to realize, okay.
I mean, and I can remember, God, consciously thinking, I don't care how much Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon like me. They're not on the road every day. They're not,
right.
I mean, and that is as a 20-something-year-old kid, that was a learning experience for me.
Right.
Again, I came from, you could more or less in the territory days in my father's promotion, if you got along with Lawler and maybe a booker, but my father, it worked. You didn't have to shake hands with every wrestler in the dressing room, or you did, but you didn't have to sit down and break bread. At the WWF at that time, much bigger machine. So, and I'll say this respectfully, the Bruces of the world, they were part of that straw that stirred the drink, and so I could tell there was definitely some still hurt feelings.
So I'm not going to get to where I need to go in this moment here.
No, without question.
Right.
Build value. I knew that enough at that stage of my career. My value wasn't what. Didn't think I could get to where I wanted to go.
So after a couple months, you get injured, right? And then you end up sitting out the rest of the contract. Is that right?
Yes.
But you told him, like, I'm injured now. I'm going to stay home and I'm not coming back for the rest of the contract. Is that how it goes?
Yes.
And are they pissed? Are they like, what are you talking about? Or are they going like?
I kind of think, and that's you know what? Nobody's ever asked me this that I can recall. It was, I kind of think Vince and Pat and I'll say my supporters were like, yeah, it's probably best he just chill, and the other was like, good riddance.
Right.
One of those things. So, I didn't go down that path. At that time, I was like 240, and we got drug tested all the time. So, but I was just carrying so much weight in my back, literally. And Brian used to laugh at me. He said, "You're walking crooked again." Yeah, I just, my L4 and L5, I knew in those rings, the WWF and the rings of those times, and not that Bret Hart, and Shawn and Kevin, they were stiff. They were stiff rings. But my back stayed in pain, and I said, I got to get well.
Yeah, and so that's what you did.
Yes.
And you ended up going over to WCW.
Yep.
So there's no hurt feelings when you go to WCW, because it's almost like one of these things where, you either we don't like you because of the last thing, or Yeah, go over to WCW, go do something, go freshen yourself up.
Or just go.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to say anybody. Yeah, it was, I'm going to work at Turner.
Now, was it exciting to get, because you're talking about the opponents that you wanted to work with, you get to WCW, you're working with the Benoits, the Malenkos, those guys, right off the bat, pretty much.
Right off the bat. Kevin Sullivan had worked with my father in the territory. I knew a lot of the names and faces. The NWO was just taking off.
Right.
Nitro was, a year old, if that. I mean, it was.
Yeah, they started like September '95 was Nitro, so about a year. Yeah,
about a year. I think they'd gone to 2 hours. Man, it was the Flair, the Four Horsemen, just the whole scene was red hot, and the Double J character had quite a bit of equity in it, coming off of that TV. That was I was one of the first. I'll say it's the first, but that character was still. It was unique coming in. I mean, obviously Kevin and Scott in the main story, all of that was there, no question. But I was obviously wasn't a part of that group. And the first couple of TVs, is he going to go NWO, whatever? And I went right into the Four Horsemen thing, which I thought was really smart of Kevin Sullivan. It took. I was coming from WWF, but all of a sudden I went into that. Is he a horseman? Is he not a horseman?
Well, it definitely differentiated you, because as a fan, I'm watching, going like, oh, another ex WWE guy is here to join the NWO. Like, that's what this thing is.
Yes.
And Jeff Jarrett's different, I guess.
Yes.
For better or worse, like Jeff Jarrett stands out.
That's why, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't fit the NWO. Certainly not at that time with the Double J character and all that. And I went into that. It was, and then the business was just beginning to just explode.
Yes, and you're still friends with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash at that point?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that's kind of a reunion.
Yeah.
How do you get along with Eric Bischoff at that point?
Good. I didn't know him very well, but yeah, fine.
Right,
yeah.
right. So you only end up there. You didn't want to go into
1 year. 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
You're there. You didn't want to be in the NWO because you wanted to differentiate yourself.
No, all of a sudden, just the way the things rolled out. I mean, it goes without saying, I grew up watching Flair.
Right.
He came in the Bash, Great American Bash. I can remember there was a storyline where Coco Beware, before he was the Birdman, when he was Coco in Memphis, they did a deal, and Flair and Coco had a match in the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. I can remember as a kid watching it, I think it's one of the best Flair matches I've ever seen live. It was just, the people in Memphis, they just knew Coco was going to win.
Yeah.
So, for me to get the opportunity to work with Flair and be in a Four Horsemen storyline and all of that, I was tickled to death, making great money and being a part of that.
Was there was a bucket list quality to being a horseman?
Yeah. If you want to say that, yeah. I certainly didn't think bucket list back then, but as I look on it now, but
right.
no, my mentality was they had the U.S. title. Kevin Sullivan, he would come up to me every night. I love your work, kid. I can't do it impersonation, but that style, a lot of bump taking. He'll put the guys over, whoever my opponent was, as much as possible. He put me in there against Paul White, the Giant, back-to-back pay-per-views. Just that whole vibe. I was super excited.
How was Steve McMichael? I was working with Steve McMichael.
I have said this whenever I'm asking about him. At that time, I don't believe I'd ever been in the ring with somebody. Paul White's is sort of a different because he's so big. But Mongo is my height or maybe a little bit bigger. Wow. You talk about extremely quick just because of it. I think he was not far from the gridiron.
Right.
And his strength was incredible.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
He could throw me around the ring with ease.
So it seemed like you had a good time there.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
So what made you decide, and at that point, you leave, but Nitro is winning the ratings wars. What makes you decide, okay, the end part of my WWE run, not the greatest, politically and on television, had a great time in WCW, ratings are up for WCW. Why do you go back to WWE?
Obviously hindsight's going to be 20/20, but I can remember watching both shows. Where would I fit in best? Where would I have the best opportunity? Obviously, in my gut, felt a lot of unfinished business,
right.
A whole lot of unfinished business, and just the vibe, and the wrestling historians will say for about a year, Raw was the better show. More compelling,
Sure.
more storyline. I don't say more storyline. It was more. It was a more compelling show.
It felt a little more cohesive too.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, without question. And it goes without saying. And I put this on my Instagram post as I was going through the Hall of Fame the year, and it made me reflect. When I got to WCW, publicly traded company. I've never ever worked for an organization that was so corporate. It was so foreign to me. And, you work for the McMahons. You work for the McMahon family.
You know what? Whether you agree with it or not, as we just talked about, you know what the vision is.
I could relate to that.
Yeah.
And the corporate world, Eric had so many things going on. He had to report to the other tower. You had Kevin Sullivan. Nitro's going from 2 to 3 hours. Oh, we're doing it was.
So even in that successful era of the show, that sort of mid to late 90s,
yes,
you could see where this is messy.
Oh gosh, yeah,
right.
Without question, and no, you can't point the finger at any one person. It's the environment,
right?
It is truly the environment, because Eric was running the show, but man, he had, I don't know how many bosses he had.
Right.
I mean, it goes without saying how many bosses, but the Raw and the way they were headed and the grittiness. It was again, and I'll go back. Probably the number one reason is had some unfinished business left there.
So you go back to WWE and you come back. I mean, for sure, with a bang, with that sort of work shoot promo where you're
yeah.
where you're just you. Did you have an idea of where you were going when you did that? Meaning, like, where is this character going?
But yeah, I was the evolution of Double J.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just say that because obviously the cowboy hat, the singing cowboy, and then the WCW run and the Horsemen and all that. But coming in, I'll just call it more a defined single heel that wanted to get in the mix right away.
Right, and it was a little bit more fitting for the show that was on TV in the sense that the sort of over the top gimmicks, country music singer guy, that era had passed a little bit.
Oh, without question.
Right.
And to go back to that, I think that's one of the things that clicked in the early days of Double J. That era. Because they had gone through T.L. Hopper and some of the good and all that. My character, it was one of the last of that era presented that way in all the vignettes. I think that's what made it stand out even more.
Right.
But yeah, fast forward
and
along.
the fact that you could actually buy into it. Even when we were kind of done buying into those characters, we bought into
question.
Double J because,
Yes.
like you said, it was that piece of your personality that was real.
Without question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't fake my accent.
Right.
Fortunately, unfortunately. But no, that era had gone by, and so it was, it was the Attitude Era without it being called the Attitude Era.
But pretty quick, you slip into the resurgence of the NWA within WWE, right?
Yeah.
How did you, when you realized that was going to be where your niche was, what did you think?
I mean, I knew right away I was out of the mix, without question. I mean, when I say the mix, I mean, I knew right away, but understood it 1,000%. Understood when you saw how the chips were falling, and Brett and Shawn and Rock, and well, not really so much Rock. He was in the Nation of Domination. But when you saw all the pieces of the puzzle.
But Austin's coming up, and you know that's happening.
Oh,
yeah.
But when you look at that roster.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I mean, that was something that immediately coming from WCW, and they were loaded, but the from top to bottom of the show, and then you get to the WWF, and I mean, DX, Rock, I mean, just Austin, just that whole list. I knew the NWA thing, and it didn't fit the Attitude Era. That was the biggest thing. Right.
Now, you had completely redone the look and everything. Straps were gone. That was in the kind of, not quite a singlet, but, the full thing covering and everything. Did you say to yourself, like, I don't know if this NWA thing is going to work, but I'm going to really try to make it work? Was that the strategy? Or
I mean, till this day, whatever I'm given, I go out and do the very best. But I knew And I knew for whatever reason I'd had that long hair. I'm like, I got to change the things. I can remember really pushing out of that NWA thing. I want to do this. Let's get rid of the hair. Let's come up with a look. I want to evolve. I want to evolve. I want to evolve. I knew that needed to come.
So now the idea is, because we do the NWA thing, doesn't really work. Was Jim Cornette heartbroken when the NWA thing didn't work?
I don't think so. Jim was business.
He was.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay, on to the next idea then.
Yeah, without question.
Gotcha. You bring back the country music guy, changed up a little, more your vision, I think, because it had the entourage. You had Southern Justice. You had, Tennessee Lee, Colonel Parker. You had Tennessee Lee with you.
It was a collaborative with creative and what do we? Because the NWA thing, I think everybody said, all right, this ain't working.
Right.
So let's go back to something that did work. And go all the way at it, almost the anti-attitude.
Right.
I mean, it was so anti-attitude era with the pyro that came down out of the ceiling, the horse,
right,
and in little snippets, it was done very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
And Robert Fuller, his presentation, God, and I've joked about this off and on for years. In '95, if we would have brought Tennessee Lee on with the roadie and Southern Justice, it would have been the next evolution,
right?
In my opinion, but
because you talk about nuances. I just think about just the way he handled his hanky and the way he would, blot the sweat off. I mean, it was excellent.
Well, he came from Colonel Parker, so all of a sudden Colonel and Elvis, all that, now Colonel and Double J, and the building blocks were there. It just never really came to fruition. And again, it's the Attitude Era. The mantra of the show, the theme of the show, the vibe of the show. It's I don't want to date myself, but it's like having Archie Bunker on Friends. What?
when you were gone and you see Brian comes back as the real Double J, Jesse James, and that didn't really work either. That didn't. Are you going like? How did you? First of all, how did you feel with the character and the idea and the fact that they were like, all right, if Jeff's not going to be here, let's just kind of run him down, build on that, and then how did you feel for this guy that you worked with doing this thing that just didn't?
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. But I looked at it and I go, and it's Jesse James. And from a business perspective, I knew exactly where they wanted to go. They wanted to make money off of singing cowboy.
Right.
Brian's not a cowboy.
Right.
He's much more like Eddie
Which
Vedder.
is, by the way, the story of like the first 20 years of WWE, right? We got to find a singing cowboy to make some money off of. There's got to be a singing cowboy out there to make some money.
And Brian, he knew he was. Brian, he lived with me.
Right.
When we left in '95, Brian lived in my house, so we were tight. And ups and downs and everything in between. It was a paycheck for him, and I was tickled to death.
It's funny.
I was happy, but I knew he wouldn't be in a joint. Well, and when you just sat back and you go, okay, they're going to keep, in my mind, I can remember thinking back, they're going to refine this. This won't work, but they're going to refine it. They're going to refine it because Brian's talented.
Yeah.
That they will get to a place of making money off his voice.
Right. Right. And so you had to be thrilled then for him.
Yeah.
When Road Dogg starts up and you're like, and there's way more of the roadie in Road Dogg than there is the real Double J in Road Dogg.
Without question.
You know what I mean? You look at what he's wearing, how he's talking,
Without
his mannerisms.
question. Yes.
Yeah. So you go back to being Double J, way over the top Double J though, which I think is the way to play it in the Attitude Era, right?
Yeah.
Right. Just ridiculous.
Exactly. That was the main mindset.
And then is that when you go, we got to change this altogether. I can't, because you can only go over the top for so long.
Yes.
Let's cut the hair. Let's change the look. Let's no more country star. Let's, let me be a little bit of a badass Southern guy.
Well, collectively, everyone knew that. Okay, that singing cowboy time had passed.
Right.
And I was ready to get a haircut a year before that, or a while before that. And ready to dive into that. And I can remember when the chips started falling. Oh man, we're going to be at the Garden and it's a hair match. I'm not a bucket list in my brain, but no, that's cool.
Right.
I'm definitely down for that.
Was there a part before that? Was there this part of you that's like, I don't want the audience to think I can't sing? You know what I mean? Because that's kind of there are some that say
from a character perspective.
Yeah.
I thought it was definitely part of the backbone of the character. So roll it out at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
With really the handoff to Brian.
Right. But timing. Going back to what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
So, do you?
I mean, that's it. I played an extension of my personality
Right.
without question. Am I a great singer? No.
Gotcha.
Can I sing? Yes.
Gotcha.
And I come from Nashville. Nobody can sing in Nashville. They tune everybody's voices. No, get it.
Does X-Pac become aware that this match is about the fact that you want to cut your hair, or do you guys keep that from him because you want to see him sweat because he doesn't want to cut his hair? Meaning,
no, he
knows.
Yeah, a member of DX is not walking around bald, especially in '99 or whenever that was.
Right. Yeah, because I always wonder with
98.
those hair matches. Like, I feel like part of me, the sick person in me, would want to keep both guys guessing until the very last minute.
I like it. No.
You know what I mean?
No.
I don't know. We haven't really decided which way we're gonna go with this thing.
No.
Of course, that's when "Don't Piss Me Off" starts.
Yep.
Was that something that you just started saying?
Yeah, in a way, creative and yeah, it just sort of all right. The because at that time the NWA it was sort of like a natural progression.
Right.
Of
Like there was something for you to rebel against. I'm tired of all this nonsense around me, all the crap.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I just didn't know standards and practices would take such a hard line on piss.
Isn't that amazing? You go back, even in the Attitude Era. First, I mean, I loved the way they tried to get around it on all the toys.
It was
like they wasn't even close. It was like, I think there was
not at all.
one that said "Don't tick me off."
Yeah,
and I'm like,
it was.
What are we doing?
Yes, and that surprised me.
Yeah. Now, do you pay attention to your merchandise?
Yeah.
Like, are
I
you
mean,
because as a kid, obviously, you know, I'm a figure collector, and
that really upsets you.
when they made first of all, it upset me that it said just "Don't tick me off," right? I was like, he's never even said that. At least put asterisks or something like tick. He doesn't say that. The second thing that pissed me off is when the Jeff Jarrett with short hair action figure came out. It was literally Owen Hart with a goatee painted on him. Did you know that?
Boy, Sam.
I mean, I wish I had the toys. I wish I had them. I wish
real?
Jax.
To this day, I don't know that.
Oh well, next time I see you, I'm just gonna carry them with me so you can see it. I'm gonna carry them both. And they didn't make a short hair Jeff Jarrett head. It drove me crazy.
I love
That's
that.
the OCD that I was dealing with as a kid.
As a kid.
It drove me crazy because they had just done a Black Heart Owen Hart, you know, with the short hair, the spike.
Oh, well, okay.
You had the same haircut.
Yes.
So they just made it blonde and painted a goatee on it. And they literally used the same body. They had a tank top. It said "Don't tick me off" in the Jeff Jarrett shorts. I'm like, it's no. What are you
as
doing?
a collector, you were really upset.
It ticked me off. I'll say that. But for the early part of that character, definitely, I think the most memorable stuff is the team with Owen.
Oh gosh, yes.
I mean, teaming with Owen, and the only thing to ask about that is, was that as fun? As it appears
he was doing,
that
I'm
it
not
was.
a nugget,
right?
I'm not a nugget, and I'm doing "Don't Piss Me Off," and we had been buddies, good buddies, but for us to sort of just boom, it just fell in and it clicked, and next thing you know, now we're tag champs.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like, and I'm getting paid to do this.
Right.
I mean, it's great.
And are you guys traveling together and doing the whole thing?
Everything. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I was tagging along with Owen for free rides. But no, traveling, and we would ride sometimes with guys from the office. But yeah, we rode together.
Yeah.
Traveled together. It was good, man. It was really, God, man. It was a special time for sure.
I'll bet. And I don't want to go too deep into it and make it too serious or too much of a bummer. But man, I always think about, the fact that you guys were friends. Not only right after what happened to Owen happened, did you just kind of keep rolling on, but I mean the match after. Like, it was like right there that night, you go out there. The next night after that, it's just we keep rolling. And I mean, how do you or anybody that was close to him, at what point do you grieve, and sink back to reality? If that makes sense.
Well, Sam, I could really get long-winded and get emotional, but I won't.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who know, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. At the end of last year, I wasn't one of my red letter days, let's say this.
Sure.
So the process that I went through, what was one of the things that was uncovered out of all of that, I hadn't even shared this with anybody, is that just what you said when you said the word grief, because It happened on a Sunday. We wrestled on a Saturday against Edge and Christian. It happened on a Sunday. We had Raw on Monday. Moline on Tuesday. Wake, funeral, back to work in 7 days. Then, obviously, I'll diplomatically say this: the ugly side of potential litigation, all that was, all that. So
that thing became about something else.
Yeah, nobody talked about it.
Right.
No. I mean, it was. We're not talking about this. It became, unfortunately, the personal side of it was completely removed. The grieving side of it did not take place. It was a business, and we're going to go to work. And I can remember declining every interview in the world. And finally, for whatever reason, I said, I'll talk, and I'll talk quickly. And I think it's in a book or Mooneyhand. And I said, anybody out there who thinks that Vince McMahon made the wrong decision, I challenge you to be put in his chair. It's impossible to make the right decision. And I said that with I still to this day, what a massive responsibility. Because anybody in their right mind, I mean, it was, now there's the legal side and all that, but it was an accident. Nobody got up Sunday morning and said, so, but I could,
and it wasn't a thing that's never been done before either.
No, that's what. Yeah, I mean, just the whole thing, and I mean,
especially in that era.
Oh gosh,
right.
yeah, just so tragic. But it was, I don't want to get off track, but no, that was something that I just found out in 2017, and that happened, as we know, in May of '99. So 18 years.
And so that's when you had, without going into detail, obviously, that's your personal business, but that's when you were like, you know what, I got to take some time, and this is one of the things that I have to deal with.
What's that now?
In 2017 is when
No, that was uncovered in recovery.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
That I had no idea.
Yeah.
On how much on how much it was
really interesting when you start to unpack what's going on in your brain, and you're like, wow, that's just been sitting there, and I had no idea. Crazy.
That stuff I referenced to you upstairs before we got started.
Yeah. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's truly amazing. And I feel today liberated.
Yeah.
On that, just because, man, what it was. But yeah, anyway. But no, to get back on, the time we spent is so special. Mm-hmm. The Edge and Christian, that part of the Hall of Fame speech, it just had to be in there. I could remember being in the gym as the days were getting closer to April 6th and making the speech and thinking about this and thinking about that, and the idea popped in my head. I said, that is something, with everything that went down, and just everything, and 18 years later, and I don't want to get too campy here, but there's no doubt in my mind, Owen, that put a smile on his face.
That's great.
Yeah, because, I mean, just me, Edge and Christian, during that time, the fun we had, and those guys were, really coming into their own. The matches that we would have every night, not only were they fun, but, me and Owen are two single wrestlers, and when they put us together as a team, man, I would have loved to have seen what could have been with us as a team.
Yeah.
I've always said that in the back of my mind, that we were on the way.
Yeah. Now, by the way, who played the Black Blue Blazer?
Heck if I know.
I was just, I swear I was watching it recently. I forgot that ever happened. And it just popped.
Somebody on Twitter will answer that for us. Somebody, please.
Can't believe neither. First of all, neither one of you should be on the podcast if you don't know that.
Yeah. That's at NOTSAN. Not real Jeff Jarrett.
Do you? So that's when you go solo. You become about the Intercontinental Championship and everything. And I think because of that run and the early run and the several runs, you've become pretty synonymous with that title. Mm-hmm. Like, you're on that short list of, like, the name the Intercontinental champions, the guys that
And pretty damn proud of that, I'll tell you that.
I think you should be.
Yeah. But
it's a big deal.
I agree with you. I agree with you that
because that list, I mean, you're talking about Mr. Perfect. I mean, I would put Bret Hart on that list, even though he's been. But I would,
and I put Shawn on it.
Absolutely,
because when you think about, Honky, great champion. I mean, and he held it for a long time, and during the Hulkamania era, I think he was the perfect Intercontinental champion because Hulk had his belt and all that, but then you had, highly entertaining character and Honky. There's only one Honky, but as it transitioned, you had Shawn, you had Kurt, you had Tito, but, but Morocco. But it came from back in the day, just that transition of that. I really took at that stage in my career, knowing the ups and downs, and then the tragedy, and for me to have that opportunity, I can remember saying, I'm going to take this ball and run with it.
Was there ever any heat with Honky Tonk Man over the fact that you were also doing a singing guy character?
I mean, not with me, certainly with me, but Honky, whether real or not, he is great about controversy. So he might have been mad. He might have been mad at me about the guitar, but I don't know.
Right.
Singing,
and who knows anyway? So you also start doing a run that, like, if you look back, you couldn't do it today. But what I always look for is the level of commitment that a performer has. And when you did that run that was leading towards the Good Housekeeping match, when you were going after, it was like, man, Jeff Jarrett is just balls to the wall, whether it's a woman, whether it's Ben Stiller, whether it's whoever, like they're getting attacked.
And I knew, and again, I'm blessed to be in the business and being around it and being able to not watch. Just I can sort of step out of. Let me look at Double J here on camera and reveal that. I knew that it was a real opportunity to do. I hate to say the word groundbreaking, but at the time I said, this is good. Yeah. The Raw was obviously red hot. Everything going on, it was different. And then you just got to give it to Chyna. When you look at DX, and I still say to this day, Road Dogg and Chyna did a lot of defining to DX. Obviously, Triple H the leader, and Shawn was in the original. Excuse me. But X-Pac. But all that, but Chyna, the eighth wonder of the world.
Well, just in terms of the aesthetic, and I mean, I go back.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it was there, and I'm like, okay. And then when we knew where we were going with it, I'm like,
and that's really interesting. You said Road Dogg and Chyna because I said my dad loved the roadie, and that's what made him like who's this Jeff Jarrett guy? In terms of DX, it was Chyna. Like that's the one that my dad, the non-wrestling fan, the guy who's like, this is all ridiculous. Is like who's Chyna?
Well, I can remember them shooting DX as they would walk down the aisle, and you can go back and look on it on the WWE Network. A lot of Chyna camera time.
Oh yeah,
she was defined. She had the look. She had the persona. She was great at what how she defined that entire faction. So, and then the housekeeping and everything that went with it, and then Deborah and Kitty and Cindy Margolis and Moolah. It's one of my favorite guitar shots all the time.
Cindy Margolis.
Just all of it. I mean, it was really good, compelling. Creative was on fire as it relates to that. One thing led to another. Over in the UK, we did a pay-per-view, and those people wanted to destroy. Oh, they wanted to kill me.
Right.
And I hate to say old school heat, but I can remember walking out, and I'm like, these guys they really don't like me.
Right. And in the best possible way, in the way that I'm paying for a ticket because I want to see that guy's ass get kicked. Yes. Right? Like and that's really rare, and it gets rarer and rarer, I feel like. But when you are booing the bad guy, it's everybody's doing their jobs right? Like this is what we've been working towards.
Well, and everybody knew in the back of their mind Chyna's going to kill him.
Right.
Even when I was cracking Moolah, Chyna's going to kill him.
Well, it was also, I mean, but even it was one of those things where like you'd see somebody, whether it was Cindy Margolis or whoever, and your music would hit. And you'd be like, it'd just be so tense because you're like, he's not really going to. But in your mind, you were like, oh my God, I think he is.
Well, the Ben Stiller shot. I just saw, I don't know, not long ago, somebody put it on Twitter.
It's on the Hall of Fame vignette. It's in the Hall of Fame package. I watched the Hall of Fame package today.
The hell out of him.
Yeah, you did.
God, I don't remember it being that stiff, but I got him.
You did.
I did get him.
Well, you got to. You can't have Ben Stiller showing up and thinking,
what a champ.
This is ballet.
What a champ he is.
He is. Was there any part of you that was not wanting to lose to Chyna because
no,
or you were like, this is why we've been doing this whole thing, it doesn't work
without
otherwise.
Question. Without question. I mean, it was even if we would have had a regular match, hindsight's 20/20, so I can't say it didn't happen. But knowing that was the kind of match that we were having, oh man, it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
What was your relationship like with Vince Russo at this point?
It's good. I mean, it was good. It goes back to he was I say the original day. When he worked for the magazine, and I was the first version of Double J. I was nice to him. He was nice to me, but he wanted to do an article, and I've just been raised in the business. I don't care who it is. You're good to him, and we did a couple of articles and. We went out during the OJ trial, and me and Road Dogg did a whole shot out there of being in Hollywood. But no, it was a good relationship.
Right. So this is a part where you leave WWE again, heading into that Chyna match. And, of course, and I think that the legend of you sticking him up for money has been pretty well clarified that you were getting the money you were owed. It wasn't an Ultimate Warrior scenario where you were trying to get more. But did they know... was it a surprise to them that when you came to them and said, "Look, my contract's up, I'm leaving after tonight"?
No, they knew the week of. But the contract, and see, that's where, and I've got so much acceptance in my life now. It was meant to happen, but at the time, I was confused. I knew where the character was at. I wanted a better offer. I felt I deserved a better offer.
And was there a part of you too that was going, I'm still looking at this roster around me, and now The Rock, and now Stone Cold, and now all these people are up here. Like, I'm not getting a fair shake here.
Well, I don't say fair shake because I was IC champ and a lot of steam. I don't say fair shake. I wanted more money. It was a business deal, and I know to this day they pay people they respect and put value on. I'm a promoter, and I was a promoter. Kid then, so I understood all that. I thought I deserved more money, but Vince was in the process of literally traveling around the world, taking his company public. He was meeting with investment bankers in Germany and this and that. I thought that I was going to get a call, but JR was handling it all, and it was just one of those things. And me and Jim have done business together since, and all that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, he valued me at one figure, and I valued myself more than that.
A lot more?
Oh God, no. Because in those days it was downside.
Gotcha.
But I knew that I wanted to, and there was a lot of backstory that went into that. But I knew that I thought, just me, but I thought I deserved a lot more than he was offering.
And you had been vocal about that.
Very vocal. Not to the dressing room.
No, of course not. I'm talking about to the people who make the decisions.
To Jim. Specifically Jim, multiple times.
Right. So this wasn't one of those left in the middle of the night scenarios.
No, it was. And then we did a Raw in Birmingham, a Raw in Atlanta. And I pushed Chyna in the Dome, pushed Chyna off a thing, and then we did a SmackDown in Birmingham. The prior week, I'm not sure where we were at with that, but I knew it was building toward that. And that was the first time I had reached out. It was within 2 weeks I had a deal. It was really close. I'm like, these guys, Jim ain't coming off this at all.
Right.
And that's telling me, that's, you'll have to interview those folks, but sure. I thought it was a direct message from Vince, and I had acceptance back then. If Vince don't value, okay, let's move on.
Right.
I know somewhere that will.
Did you get the feeling, because you don't know, I would have to ask them, but did you get the feeling that Jim Ross or Vince McMahon or any of the people were pissed that you maybe not had made that decision, but were saying, like, I need the money that you owe me tonight?
Oh, were they pissed about that?
Yeah.
No, but here's why. The pay-per-view obviously on a Sunday.
Correct.
My contract expired midnight Saturday night. But that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before the event.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, I had the answer machine, whatever. And Vince had tried to call me a couple of times, but I'd already signed. And probably the little boy in me or the businessman in me or a mixture of things, I didn't want to get on the phone because I said he's going to talk to me, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But, the decision it made, I'd already given my word to WCW. I'm coming. I'll be there Monday. You need to fly me from Cleveland.
Right.
That's where the plane ticket needs to come. And so the deal was done. But, I mean, shit, anybody around me, at home knew that I was very conflicted because I said, okay, here I am. I'm the IC champ. I didn't even think about the match or the consequence. I mean, the finish of the match. I knew we were going with that, whether I stay in or not. But I knew there was a lot of money in the pipeline. At that time, the business was red hot. There were 3 or 4 house show runs, 3 or 4 pay-per-view runs. The specific pay-per-view that I'm working on, I knew that at that time, the jumps had more or less calmed down. For the most part.
Sure.
I knew this wasn't going to be favorably received, and rightly so. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna, I'm gonna have to make a statement and get my money and get on with it and get out of everybody's hair. And when I said that to Jim, he understood. I mean, he knew where I was coming from.
Yeah,
he certainly knew where I was coming from. And they knew that I didn't have to be there. I was out of contract, so to speak, from a contractual point of view, and Vince did too. But I'll never forget, as long as I live, Vince himself delivered me the check and shook my hand, and he had a smile on his face, I had a smile on my face. And whether he was genuine or not, I sincerely believed him, and he really appreciated me coming and doing everything. And then after the match, I had all that crap all over me, and I said, I'll go shower, I'll be back. And I went back and showered and got all that crap off and went back, and we gave each other a hug, and
that was that. Happy trails.
That was it. Didn't see him again to the stage in New Orleans.
That's unbelievable. I think for right now I have to skip that second WCW run.
Yeah.
But I want to know.
Time's ticking over there.
Time is ticking.
Sun's setting outside. I see it.
That's right. But I want. First of all, we're gonna have to do another part of this interview.
Then let's cut it off right here. I'll see you, bud.
Then we're done. But what I want to know, because I think it's valuable to what we've been talking about, is last episode of Nitro. That's when Vince comes on the TV and says, GOONNE gone. And
do it one more time.
Gone.
There you go, Sam. I like it.
I had, as I'm watching that, as a fan, I took that as storyline, right? Like I took that as that's Mr. McMahon. That's not Vince McMahon.
Correct.
The legend that built off of that was
fantastic.
Vince McMahon fired Jeff Jarrett on national television, and I'm like, I thought it was, but okay, if you fired him, that was. How did you take that?
I knew exactly what my contract said.
Right.
I mean, to the letter that I was in March, that I'm getting paid till November, December, whatever. I knew, or the fall. Anyway, I knew that. And so, that's the great part of the business. And I chuckled, but I'm like, how are you going to fire somebody that you don't? I don't really work for him.
Right.
It's surprising and shocking, and how quickly all that went down.
Yeah.
And not just me. There was a bunch of us that knew our contract was with.
Well, pretty much all the main event guys, right?
I mean, we were getting paid out.
Right.
It wasn't.
That's why none of them. I mean, that's what happened. For the majority of the main event guys,
yes,
did not show up on WWE TV for a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you? So
and I will say this.
Yeah.
That night. Not right when it came out, but I think it was on WCW Live or something. I remember saying, I'm like, out of all the guys, he picked me to fire. How about that?
Yeah,
I did. I remember joking about that. So
and he still put the old Double J thing over, right? When he said GOO.
When you really think about it, come on, he's putting me over. And if he's not putting me over, he's making good TV. And that's what he always does.
Yeah.
What's best for his organization, he does.
Do you, so the reason that you were not a part of anything WWE related for all of this time, you're the only one really who was not. Was it really because you went and started doing TNA so quickly that you were just on different sides? Or were you blackballed?
You'd have to ask, to be blackballed, I'm not the decision maker.
They wouldn't have told you, right?
No.
That's the whole point.
But when my first wife, when Jill passed away,
yeah,
very, very nice phone call. A few times after that, I would see folks, and they would say, hey, whatever, Vince said tell you hello. So blackballed, I think, is
It's a stretch.
But it's a great story.
I mean, it's much funner.
Oh God,
it's much funner. Jeff Jarrett marched in there. He said, "I'm not losing this title unless you give me $1 million." And Vince McMahon gave it to him and never talked to him again.
But you're forgetting the biggest part of it.
What's that?
When I just pulled my jacket back, he saw the gun. He said, "I better pay this guy."
That's right. That's
I mean,
right.
he's packing.
And there's not. All right. Go out there and work the match still, by the way.
Then what was crazy when he gave me the money, he was some of it was in 5s and 10s.
Because it's all he had. Take it all. Take whatever I got. This is from the merch booth, actually. Well, because Jeff asked for it in cash.
Yeah, of course I did.
That's what Jeff Jarrett was doing. Would you like to? I mean, I know Global Force is coming back again now.
With Fight.
Which is huge, with Fight Network.
Well, you just jumped up 15 years.
Well, here's the thing. I'm looking.
What time is it?
I'm
sorry.
We're
gonna do part 2.
We're gonna have to do another part where we talk about. I mean, we may have to do 2 more parts because I still have to talk to you about the WCW run, which was a huge part of your career. We're talking about world title main event stuff.
And there is some really good stuff.
Dude,
I feel comfortable around you. I just want to say that because you know your stuff.
Yeah.
Some guys do a lot of reading, but they still don't know their stuff.
Right.
You sort of know your stuff.
Right.
I'm no kidding.
I mean,
there is some really, really compelling stuff from the time I got there in October of '99 till March of 2001. That place, you're going to say that's fiction.
All right, well, then we need to do a whole show just on that.
Honest to God, you'll say, no, that's fiction.
Yeah, and I mean, we need to make that a priority. Do that whole show. I mean, and also, even the basics. I want to know, I'm sure you've told it a million times, I want to know the Bash at the Beach story. I want to know your take on Arquette. All that, you were there for all of it, and I'm fascinated by the last 2 years of WCW as it is.
And it is fascinating, and it is down in history. It's really a part of American. Just because, in my opinion, the way I look at it, now, obviously we're probably a little older than a lot of your viewers out there, but it's Ted Turner and Vince McMahon. And Ted Turner, this media conglomerate, and Vince down here, the wrestling promoter, and how it went. And then all of a sudden he buys it pennies on the dollar.
Unbelievable.
What a success story.
Unbelievable.
It is, and I'm in there as a talent,
right?
Watching all this go around, and in Club La Vila or Panama City, and all of a sudden you go, "All righty, we'll see ya."
Right. That's the moment. I mean, I'm sure you'd already had that moment before, but that's the moment when you give up predicting things. Like, I think I know how this is going to play out. You're like, you know what? I just got to ride this wave.
Well, I can remember having conversations with production people there, and you just go, this is logical if you really sit back and look about it. It's a wrestling business.
Right.
Who else?
Right.
Yeah.
Who wants to? Yeah. You're right. Well, we'll go. I mean, again, we have to get into all of that. We have to talk a whole TNA thing. We didn't even touch on TNA, and I got a ton of TNA questions from NWA TNA to Impact to this to that to Dixie to the whole thing. Fine. Yeah. I want to know all about all that stuff. So that's probably another 2 parts. I also, and I'll just ask you now. And this is strictly coincidence, right? So I used to have a giant Blu-ray collection and DVD collection.
Oh, boy. Used to.
Sold
it in the garage sale to get me here.
That's right. That's how I got you here. But, that's right. The reason I bring this up, actually I sold it all so I could pay WWE so they'll put me on TV. But.
Of course.
But the reason why I bring that up is because there's a few movies still in my collection that are just like my favorites.
Life with Mikey.
Spring Breakers.
Oh,
I mean,
I jacked up on Jesus.
I love Spring Breakers. I saw it in theaters. I was
no
just,
way.
I was
Harmony, my man, Nashvilleian.
Yeah. I just thought the whole thing was unbelievable.
He's the director of the movie.
James Franco, it's the best thing he's ever done in my opinion. I'm a big James Franco fan. But I didn't know you were in it. Like, I don't just go like, oh, there's a wrestler in the movie. Anything that if there's a wrestler in, I'll go. If there's not a wrestler in, I'm not seeing it.
Up on screen.
Right. And you're there, and I'm like, how does Jeff Jarrett end up in Spring Breakers?
You want to hear this story?
Tell me.
Do you not know this story?
I don't.
Oh, then you're not a real Jeff. No, anyway, this is crazy. So Harmony Korine, him and his wife. Anyway, he's from Nashville, Story, all that kind of stuff. The casting agent, Lorraine Mayfield Casting. If you look on House of Cards, they also cast. They're a casting agent out of L.A. they okay. Guess who was supposed to play that role? And as you saw the movie, there's cameos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer.
So he ended up not being able to do it, and so Harmony says, "I want a wrestler like a real motivational youth pastor, but has a wrestling vibe for it." My bad. He's a youth pastor with a wrestling vibe, and the guy goes, "I got it, Jeff Jarrett." What? So anyway, I'm sitting at my desk. Oh, you're gonna love this.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at my desk. Anyway, the email pops up. Oh, come on. And I literally, replied right back. Yep, sure. I mean, you say, hey.
And do you know who Harmony is before all this? Like, are you familiar with him?
Not
too much.
A little bit, yeah.
Sure. You know of him.
Just because of the Nashville connection.
Sure.
That's it.
Sure.
So it says, it's a quick little thing. Are you interested in reading for a part? Here's the movie, and they name drop,
Vanessa Hudgens and
Franco. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
James Franco. And
sure, I'd love to. What are next steps? They emailed back like that. Hey, we'll send you a script. Can you do a read? And I'm like, I'm not sure what all. I didn't know what do you mean? He goes, get an iPhone. I said, oh God, yeah, I can do that. Anyway, so from about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, by 2:30 in the afternoon, I've got the part.
Oh my!
And guess who filmed my little read?
Who?
Rudy Charles. he was working for me, working with me and all this. I said, Rudy, come here. And he goes, what? And so I had the thing. And so he filmed it, and I did the read, and they sent it back. And, all right, you got the part. Then they come back and say, well, here's when we want you to do it. And I go, oh, my God, that's spring break. It legitimately was spring break whenever the year before. Mm-hmm. And me and Karen and the kids, we're all going to Atlantis, Nassau.
Yeah.
And they're filming it in Tampa, St. Pete area. And I'm like, no way. Anyway, we had to juggle things and cut the vacation. No, we got to the vacation a day late because we all flew down as a family, stayed over there, got the hotel, went down, did the part. Kids got to come on set. The picture's still in the house of, God almighty, not Vanessa.
The pop star Selena Gomez.
Yeah. She was on set and everything. So the girls, everybody got their photos, and then the director was there, and we shot everything in a day and a half.
Did you watch the movie?
I did, and that was what's crazy is I had no idea until I got to Tampa when they said, "You know what this movie's about?" I said, "Yeah, they're the Disney kids," and but I really didn't know how deep it was. And then they gave me the story. But that's Harmony.
Yeah.
It was really, really cool. But, we went, and then when it had the premiere in Nashville, we went to the premiere party, and me and Karen and all that. And it was cool being in that vibe, and you're there, and the people walk by, and so the younger kid, hey, that's the pastor. I had no idea. It was fun, though.
So, when can we expect to start watching Global Force on Fight, and what type of talent are you eyeing to populate this thing?
And that's why I'd say this. Watch as we roll out announcements. It's going to be in a non-traditional, because I think everybody immediately jumped to, hey, Global Force Wrestling Programming is going to be on. If you'll notice, we put out Global Force Entertainment.
Yes.
So it is going to be a hybrid, and it's going to be a rollout. Not to spoil anybody's ideas, but in 2018 there's not going to be quote unquote we're going to roll this out, but in the future, but Fight, their technology, and that's what attracted me. Their technology is superior. It is their encryption, transactional pay-per-view, diverse. They are MMA, boxing, and wrestling, sort of a one-stop shop. So we've got some cool things coming down the pike this year. Look for a big event at the end of this year, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I love it. And I'm going to have to go to the big event, or do the big event in New York so I can get you back in this studio, because we still have a lot of ground to cover. I mean, we've been talking for a long time. I could talk to you
long time.
It feels longer.
It is. I'm kidding. I enjoyed it, man.
I could really easily.
I knew I would, too.
Yeah, well, I would tell you. I decided I usually just go for it, and where the conversation takes us. I have 2 pages of questions here.
Get out of here. Oh,
2 pages
folks,
of questions.
Really, on this page right here, there's Raw and there's some other SmackDown notes.
Yeah.
Is it really?
2 pages of questions, and I don't even think we got through the first page.
Good.
And I think that's the way to do it.
Folks, in New Orleans, and we'll end with this.
Please.
How much fun did we have ribbing each other back and forth doing this. It was nonstop.
Awesome. It was awesome.
nonstop.
I mean, as soon as I approached, I had never met you in person before. Of course, I knew your work, and I had seen that you'd liked a couple of my photos on Instagram here and there. So I said, okay, he's aware of me. That's awesome, right? Like, I'm excited by that. And then as soon as I see you, it's like, oh, hey, man, yeah, it's good to meet you. You know, I haven't been invited on that podcast.
That's
yours,
right. I jabbed you right away.
And then every person you introduced me to, oh, have you done Sam's podcast? Oh, yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't been asked to. But now...
Shamelessly plugged you in there.
That's right. But now, there's not that many people who have not only gotten to do the podcast, but done it from the Not Sam studio. You know?
I love
this is the special place.
The Mecca.
This is the Mecca.
Is that 57th?
Right down there is 50. Times Square is right that way. You see it over there. You can kind of see the New Year's
cops
Bowl
down there.
Oh, I mean, you never know what's going on down there.
What is that?
You never know. You know what? I'm going to take you down to some of those restaurants. Yeah, you don't want to look. You don't want to look. You're that pastor. I'm still seeing you as the pastor from Spring Breakers. You don't want to see some of that stuff.
Please.
Jeff Jarrett, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
Love to, man.
Thanks,
Seriously,
man.
love to.